Hello and welcome to this episode of our program Arab Affairs. Today is our first episode during this year. We are also congratulating everyone all over the world a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. Also, we are congratulating our Eastern brothers who are celebrating the Christmas, who just celebrated Christmas Eve yesterday and are still in celebration. So a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year to everyone around the globe. Today we chose to speak about one of the important Arab countries that are regionally in unrest up till this minute. We chose to start with Iraq. Why Iraq? Iraq is one of the most powerful oil-producing countries. Iraq is or was the gate to the eruption of some of the or was the reason behind destabilizing other countries afterwards. And Iraq we begin with today. What is Iraq? Where is Iraq? This is already what we will just now discuss. Iraq is a Middle East country, as I said. It is one of the most powerful oil-producing countries. Iraq, to the north of Iraq, there is Syria. To the south of Iraq, or rather the southwest of Iraq, there is Jordan. To the south, there is Saudi Arabia. It is in the middle of the Middle East Asian countries. Also, Iraq is so important to the scene at large in the Arab world. What is happening in Iraq? What is really happening in Iraq? If we can see, this is Iraq, and it stands in the middle of the Arab world, as I said at the very beginning. If we can see why the fighting did not stop in Iraq after the invasion, or the so-called deconstructive chaos that took place in 2003 because of the so-claimed weapons of mass destruction that were never really or believed to be there or even found there. So if we can look at Iraq, here we will find that Iraq in itself is divided. This is why the war did not stop after the invasion, because of this division. Yes, or there are the majority at large are Muslims, but they are divided into areas. So here in Erbil and the Kurdish area, where Mosul, and we will speak about Mosul later on, exists. This is the Kurdish area with the most Kurdistan lies there with its, of course, capital Erbil. This is the Sunni area where, as we see, Tikrit remains. Of course, the areas which you can see with some lines, yellow and orange, this is the mixture area between the Kurdish and the Sunni community. If we go to the south, we will find the blue area, which is the Shiite area, and this the orange and blue lines is the mixture area between the Sunni and Shiite. Of course, Baghdad is the capital. Fallujah, Tikrit, Erbil, Mosul, these are important cities in Iraq. As we see the map, here lies Syria, Jordan to the west, Saudi Arabia to the south, Iran to the east. This is the situation in Iraq, or this is the map situation in Iraq, and this is why Iraq was not able to really contain the situation there or avoid conflict. Why conflict? Because of sharing power. After the US invasion to Iraq, after Saddam was removed and hanged, the division or the conflict on power sharing started. The Sunni area and the Shiite area, they exchanged some of the charges that the Shiite were marginalized during, of course, Saddam Hussein. The Sunni afterwards charged that they have, or there is a kind of discrimination. However, what is happening now in Iraq is that they tried, or the government or the authorities have already tried to avoid such an important reason for division, which is this sectarian divide, because of one common challenge that has erupted afterwards, which is Daesh, the so-called Daesh. That where the thought of really reconciling together in order to face a common challenge which has erupted, threatening the whole world, but started in Iraq. Daesh started the idea of reconciliation. So the government or the authorities that have been taking place right now thought of reconciling, and now there is this golden triangle. What is the golden triangle? These are the forces that are fighting Daesh in the areas where it controls right now, or Daesh controls right now. Those areas are, of course, to the northern, along with the south of Syria. These are the areas where Daesh are here in Iraq. Of course, this triangle includes the Sunnis, the Shiite, the Kurdish. All together are the elements of the Iraqi forces who are in a battle to take Mosul. Now, who are Daesh, or who is Daesh? That indeed is a question mark that has never been answered. We don't know what is Daesh. Only what we know is that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who was part, or whose militants were part of the Al-Qaeda, or one branch of Al-Qaeda, suddenly he got his militants and he just took off Al-Qaeda. They disagreed over issues, and he started what he called Daesh. Daesh started in Iraq, as I said, as Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was in Guantanamo when he started all this Daesh. What we know about Daesh is very limited. Who are the founders, the real founders, those who are funding Daesh? All these remain as mysterious. Of course, we'll be also speaking about this. Now that the Golden Triangle started their, of course, battle against Daesh, they were able to control many areas that are in the north, and they are in their last battle in Mosul. So, why Mosul is important? Why Mosul is a very decisive point for Iraqis? Mosul is in the Kurdish area. It is mostly of Sunnis. It includes around 2 million people. It is mostly made up of Sunnis. And Mosul is the last bastion of Daesh. It is the last stronghold of Daesh. If Daesh lost this point, then it means that it has lost its territory or stronghold in the Iraqi territory. And that is why Mosul is very important. But another important point is that Mosul in itself would really strengthen the idea of reconciliation, strengthen the idea of holding up to the Iraqi territory at large. There has been some thoughts, particularly from the West End, that Iraq should be divided. Mosul is a point where Iraqi fighters, or this Golden Triangle, would be able to certify that they are able to unite their forces to fight as one hand, as a united Iraq. So these are two important points that we are, or Mosul is important for. Now, if we speak of how the future look like, But before we speak about the future, we have to also introduce the key player or the international key players in Iraq. And of course, those are the United States from one side, Iran from the other, Turkey, which Iraq has many times condemned its existence in Iraq and even raised the issue to the United Nations Security Council, but up till now there is no concrete condemnation. The Gulf states. How each of those countries are affecting the situation in Iraq, this is also what we will be speaking about. How does the future of Iraq look like? We will be discussing these all Iraq. Before we delve into our discussion, or before we start our discussion about Iraq, first let's have a quick look on the Arab news that took place during this week, and of course we'll come back for discussion.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi on Wednesday held talks with Jordanian Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Nasser Jouda, during which they discussed bilateral ties as well as the latest Arab and regional developments. The meeting tackled the expected issues to be reviewed in the upcoming Arab Summit. The talks also focused on the importance of respecting the state's territorial sovereignty. President el-Sisi highlighted the significant role of the Arab states in fighting terrorism. During the meeting, the Jordanian foreign minister had conveyed a message to the president from the Jordanian monarch, inviting him to participate in the upcoming Arab Summit due to be held in Jordan in March. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi received a phone call from Bahraini monarch Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa on Thursday. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Ala Youssef said the two Arab leaders hailed the deeply rooted bilateral ties on both leadership and people's levels. He added that el-Sisi and Hamad agreed on boosting bilateral cooperation in all fields and to continue mutual consultations on all levels. The two leaders also discussed a number of issues of mutual concern, as well as the current challenges facing the region, on top of which is fighting terrorism. Russia's military on Friday said it had begun scaling down its deployment to Syria, with Moscow's sole aircraft carrier said to be the first to quit the conflict zone. Russian news agencies quoted the Russian military chief as saying that the group headed by aircraft carrier Admiral Kusentov would be the first to leave. Meanwhile, Syrian government aircraft bombed a rebel-held district that is capital's main water source as the rival side traded blame over a cut to main supplies. Damascus has been without water from Wadi Barada, a once popular hill station northwest of the capital, since December the 22nd, leaving some 5.5 million people thirsty.
Welcome back, and these were the Arab news that took place during this week. Also, there were some of the economic Arab news that took place during the past 2 weeks. And since we are at the beginning of this year, then we thought to just pinpoint some of the important news or economic news that took place in several countries in the Middle East. Let's watch the economic news and we'll come back for discussion. Prime Minister Sharif Ismail ordered the restructuring of the country's Ministerial Economic Committee, which he chairs, with the Governor of the Central Bank, the Ministers of Finance, Trade and Industry, International Cooperation, Planning, Investment and Public Business Sector. The Prime Minister appointed the Minister of Finance, Amr al-Garhi, as director and spokesman for the committee, which is tasked with assessing economic policies and maintaining financial stability in the short, medium and long term. Upon its reformation, Finance Minister Amr al-Garhi said that the Prime Minister's directives included revising the country's economic performance and indicators every 3 months, as well as setting policies and making decisions to solve the country's economic challenges. The committee's duties will also include communication with state institutions, formulating public opinion on economic decisions, and promoting Egypt's economic reform program among international financing organizations. Saudi Arabia projected a 2017 budget deficit of about $53 billion and a lower than expected shortfall for this year after government cost-cutting in response to lower oil prices. Expenses next year will reach 890 billion riyals against revenues of 692 billion riyals. This is according to the Saudi cabinet. The cabinet said this year's deficit will be 297 billion riyals, down 8.9% from 2016's budget for costs. Revenues for this year are expected at 528 billion riyals, higher than projections a year ago of 513.75 billion riyals. Spending is expected to come in at 825 billion riyals for 2016, 1.8% lower than foreseen. The world's biggest oil exporter froze major building projects, cut cabinet ministers' salaries, and imposed a wage freeze on civil servants in the wake of last year's record deficit, which reached $97 billion. The production deal between the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, and non-OPEC producers kicks in on New Year's Day. It's the first such deal in 15 years, and the hope is it will bolster oil prices in the year ahead. The pact will cut crude oil production across the globe by almost 1.8 million barrels a day. Saudi Arabia is making most of those cuts, and it stands ready to cut more if required. As the Arab world's biggest economy and biggest oil producer, Saudi Arabia's economy needs the oil price at around $50 a barrel, according to plans outlined in its latest budget. As the United Arab Emirates welcome 2017, it can look back with pride on 2016, the year in which it accomplished a number of goals, including the formulation of an ambitious 5-year plan. The country works to meet the goals set in the United Arab Emirates 2021 vision. During meeting of the cabinet held in October, the United Arab Emirates decided to speed up the pace of development to reach the goals set in the national agenda. The United Arab Emirates has a front-ranking position globally when it comes to implementation of government plans in the public sector. It leads the region in more than 100 development indicators, apart from indicators related to infrastructure, quality of roads, security and safety, women's education, government performance, and confidence in government. Furthermore, the United Arab Emirates economy has witnessed a great improvement, with the GDP doubling from 663 billion riyals to 1,360 billion riyals. Its non-oil exports also increased from 113 billion riyals to 603 billion riyals, accounting for the non-oil sector's share in the GDP going up from 66 to 77%. Welcome back, and I guess to highlight the topic that we were speaking about, of course we're speaking today about Iraq. Iraq, as I said at the very beginning, one of the most or the strongest countries that has been. We really needed to return as it is. It is also one of the most important oil-producing Arab countries. I guess to highlight the situation and the developments in Iraq, we have with us over Skype Dr. Hussein Al-Alawi, Strategic Affairs Expert. Dr. Hussein, good evening to you, sir.
Yeah, hello, I hear you, it's okay.
Right, we're speaking today about Iraq and why Iraq, or why we chose Iraq to start with, because Iraq is one of the most important and strong countries that has been, and we hope it would return to the situation it was before. It is very important for us to speak about Iraq. We really want you to tell us or to illustrate on the situation now in Iraq.
Yeah, I think the Iraqi terrorism was a successful intervention to kill Zoom in the eighth Muslim city. It is the biggest operation in the Furqan and the Ghafran area. Is good activity today to control and to near the fourth bridge. This bridge is very important to connect it between the left and right, the Mosul area. I think the Iraqi counter-terrorism service was intervention. Good job today to control this team and introduce the procedure to recapture many Jews in the next time.
One of the issues, Dr. Hussein, that was really threatening Iraq, particularly after the removal of Saddam Hussein, was the issue of division, sectarian division. And today, as we know, that there has been sometimes that the government is carrying on with reconciliation, and we have seen that the new parliament is or contains all the sects in Iraq. How far or how strong is this reconciliation? How strong do you think it can really last, and how important it is to last?
I think the operation faced a problem, and the master problem in the Mosul city, because the civilians and the people resident in her and enter Nile. I think this battle is very difficult on Iraqi forces when you liberty June and Secretary and many people maybe touch with ISIS. Also the biggest problem. But I think now the Iraqi counter-terrorism service control this problem, and good relation with the civilian people, and good job to hold food and some material for living daily. And now I think this matter is reduced the influence of the Operation Liberty.
How do you view, sir, the future of Iraq? Do you hear me? Dr. Hussein, how do you view the future, the upcoming future?
The sound is very weak.
So how do you view the future of Iraq? What's your expectation?
Please, can you repeat the question? Because I'm hearing it's very weak.
Right. I guess Dr. Hussein Al-Alawi, Strategic Affairs Expert, we thank you very much for joining us on Nile TV. Hope to see you when more developments occur in Iraq. Thank you very much. Back to our discussion, and before we continue on with our discussion, let's first have this report on Iraq, and we'll come back.
Iraqi forces launched an offensive against the Daesh militant group near the Syrian border. Head of the operation, Lieutenant General Qasim Mohammadi, said the military operation has begun in the western areas of Anbar to liberate them from Daesh. He added that the operation was led by the Army's 7th Division, police and fighters from local tribes that have opposed the militants with aerial backing from the coalition. The main targets of the operation are Aneh, Rawa and Al-Qayyim, the westernmost Iraqi towns along the Euphrates Valley. The militant hub of Al-Qayyim, which lies 330 kilometers northwest of Baghdad, is still a long way down the road, and the most immediate target is the town of Anna. Mohammadi told reporters that their forces started advancing from Haditha towards Anna from several directions. Haditha was never seized by Daesh when the group swept across much of Iraqi Sunni Arab heartland in 2014 and is home to a tribe that has led the fight against the militants in the area. Baghdad and its allies also turned up the heat on Daesh in its last remaining Iraqi stronghold of Mosul, where the US-led coalition said it had doubled the numbers of its advisors. Elite Iraqi troops advanced against Daesh terrorists in eastern Mosul in their first nighttime raid in the city in an operation which officials say is gaining momentum. US coalition warplanes carried out 19 airstrikes in support of the assault, which killed dozens of terrorists.
Welcome back, and speaking about Iraq, as we asked Dr. Alawi about the future of Iraq, some of the important points remain so important to tackle in order for Iraq to be united or return to what we really want, not as wanted by others. The most serious attention should be paid to strengthening Iraqi state institutions. State institutions meaning the parliament, of course, definitely starting the government, the parliament, of course. There are the Interior Ministry in Iraq. There are also the financial one, or the Ministry of Finance, or the financial institution. All these are important institutions to be really paid attention to, or really need to be strengthened. Also, the Iraqi functioning authority should really be much more pay more attention to the financial situation in Iraq. Of course, Iraq was one of the most important oil-producing countries. Still, we needed to return to that. Of course, there is also the provincial administration, the economic diversification, revenue sharing between Baghdad, Erbil, and power sharing was one of the issues of the vision that was really a reason of the Iraqi division. I guess that this issue has been a real, or that issue should be of real importance to be tackled. Borders, security, relations between Ankara and Baghdad, and of course there are, as we said at the very beginning, some of the international key players who really have a role to play. Now, if we speak about the United States invaded Iraq in 2003 because of what it claimed to be a mass of destruction weapons, really never found. But it also said that it was helping Iraqis for the so-called constructive case. We have seen a case, we have not seen any construction up to this minute. Anyway, the United States is playing a key factor now. It is helping the, as I said at the very beginning, the Golden Triangle in its fight against Daesh terrorist group that has has taken swaths of areas in northern Iraq and, of course, in Syria. Now, the Iraqis have been able to control most of those territories, and they are now in their battle in Mosul. Another key player is Turkey. Or rather, we start with Iran because of its influence in the Shiite predominant areas. If we speak about Iran, Iran has lots and lots of role to play in Iraq, and the real conflict there is the Shiite and the Sunni division. This is one of the areas. I guess to highlight or to pinpoint the future of Iraq and, of course, what are the real challenges facing it, we have with us over the phone Dr. Sharif Ad-Demirdash, political analyst. And Dr. Sharif, good evening to you, sir.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Sharif, good afternoon to you, and we are speaking today about Iraq. We have illustrated some of the points that really need to be taken into consideration while building the new Iraq, but we really need to understand what are the challenges that are facing Iraq at this particular moment.
Well, first of all, we have to understand that Iraq possessed the second strongest army, Arab army in the area, in the region. Number two, Iraq was the third Gulf states in oil wealth. And it was number two in the strategic reservoir of oil in the world. This is what exactly was the situation before the American and the alliance's invasion to Iraq. The future of Iraq now depends on, let's say, not only the will, but a combination of factors that you have mentioned. First of all, the oil. Second of all, the Shiite camp and the Sunni camp that United States of America are building to divide the Muslim world. Third, its frontiers, its borders with Iran, with Turkey, with Syria, and with Saudi Arabia.
Exactly. Dr. Sharif, these are exactly but are the key important players in the Iraqi scene. If we speak about, you spoke about the United States, but if we also speak about Iran and the influence of Iran in Iraq and how this can really reflect on the reconciliation among the Iraqi sects.
Well, you will never have once more a united Iraq. This is an episode which ended. You will have now a divided Iraq under any form, I mean acceptable form like federation or whatever. And so Iran today, the strongest foothold in the Persian or not in the Persian in the proximity to Persia in the Arab world is Iraq. Iraq, it has common borders with Iran. It has at least a good percentage, let's say, I will not say a majority, but almost a majority of Shiite in Iraq. Iraq, it's now divided. It doesn't have a unity government. The government is controlled by the Shiite. The army is divided.
Actually, Dr. Demirdash, the army is another strong point. The army now has or contains, or those who are really in battle against the Daesh, the so-called Daesh, are really comprised of the Sunni, Shiite, and Kurds. And they are called the Golden Triangle. And that is the reconciliation that we have been hearing about. But that is because of their war against this terrorist organization that is really threatening the whole Iraq. But what after Mosul? How do you think the government can really control all the territories of Iraq, and not only the Shiite and Sunnis area, but we're also speaking about Kurdish or the Kurdish area?
Exactly. Daesh is an instrument implemented by the United States of America on the Iraqi soil. The purpose of the presence of Daesh is exactly to facilitate this division. I mean, Daesh is not a permanent player. No, Daesh exactly, it serves a specific purpose, and this purpose has been fulfilled. That's why they are now withdrawing Daesh and trying to secure what we call it a safe exit for Daesh troops towards Libya, towards Syria, towards Egypt, whatsoever. So you have to be aware that Daesh, it served a purpose, and this purpose has been fulfilled. The division of Iraq. The future is you have a Kurdish Iraq, you have a Sunni Iraq, and you have a Shiite Iraq. Daesh, it's a manifestation of Sunni extremism. It will remain always this kind of extremism in all the trivial societies of the Arab world. So Daesh, it is not a permanent case because it is not a reality. It's a fabrication. But the extremism, I mean the fundamentalism, it exists. This is radical. It exists in the whole Islamic world. It's often according to poverty, education, contact with the West, whatever, with civilization, with open civilization, but it remains there. So what is there is some extremism. Yes, it will remain always, but Daesh will disappear because it has served its purpose already.
Yes. I guess the situation in Iraq remains with many challenges to come. We really need to see how will they be able to maintain their reconciliation in the fight against Daesh, and also in the aftermath of this. Dr. Sharif Al-Demirdash, political analyst, we thank you very much for being with us. I guess that wraps up our episode for the day, or this file. Of course, we'll be speaking many times about Iraq when there will be other developments. Throughout the other weeks, we'll be speaking about other important, or the developments in other important Arab countries. We chose Iraq today because Iraq was the beginning, or the invasion of Iraq was the beginning of chaos that erupted in the Middle East. We chose Iraq because we need Iraq to regain its territorial effect. It has been a very strong country. We need it back. We need it to return to as it was. We need its reconciliation among all its sects for its strength. I guess it will be up to the Iraqi people to maintain their own integrity, which is a must. Many thanks for watching.